it was divided. It was a bedroom, a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and they had one, two, three, four, five beds to sleep in. Of course, some were converted into sitting quarters during the daytime. At night, they were open for sleeping quarters. Grandmother done all the cooking and shopping. Grandfather had a little bit of a garden in the back where he used to take care of. We used to grow his own vegetables and other stuff. And once a week he used to take a trip to Marm or Sigat, which was the so-called big city, where he used to shop for other essentials. Grocery stores we had around Krechner, which was the border town, had little grocery stores and other stores. But once a week he used to take a ride to Schwartz, where he brought other essentials that we didn't have. A doctor, we had one in North Portugal and another doctor in Siga. And Dr. Munkachi, if you had appendix, or you had a toothache, or a earache, or a footache, you went to the same doctor. He took care of everything.
How many people lived in your grandfather's house when you were there with your mother?
Well, when I was there with my mother, I don't remember.
Well, to the best of your recollection, who was there?
The best, to my collection, there was only the three of us. Grandfather, grandmother, and I. And my cousin used to come over once in a while, Rosie Weiss, who is here now. She used to come over. Sometimes they stay overnight or so. Because her house was crowded, overcrowded with children. So they used to come. Otherwise, all I remember is the three of us in the big house.
Well, you say it's one big room. How big was a big room?
My child's recollection could have been as big as this or twice as big.
Okay, you just don't remember, it was just a
I
large room.
just couldn't remember.
Okay, and
I had no idea how large is large, you know, that
the community where your grandfather on your mother's side and
Now, the
Can you describe
community
it?
was ultra-religious. Like you would see the movies, the Fiddler on the Roof, State Villa. Like they lived the community, that's how they lived over there. They had two schools, they had a cemetery, they had a mikveh, it was way out, that you had to go once. You needed, whether you needed or not, to bathe, especially on Fridays, you know,
when you say way out,
way out.
I mean,
Because we also
4
had
blocks?
outhouses, we didn't have no plumbing in the house, we didn't have no toilets in the house, we had outhouses. We had to go fetch from the well, the water. And there were so many wells in different parts of the city and from the town, and each one had to go and fetch the water from the well. And of course, my mother had a big tub where she used to give me a bath. It was like a big wash basin. But once a week, I went to the mikveh with my grandfather. They also had what you call a Russian steam bathhouse in there too. And the mikveh, they had huge, big bathtub big. They used to put in 10, 12 kids in there, you know. And after that, we used to go in the mikveh to dunk ourselves off. The mikveh was cold, and I hate that. First, he used to take me over to the Russian.
This is your grandfather would take you?
Yeah, he used to rub me down, you know. Then
With
took me-
eucalyptus leaves?
Huh?
What did they used to rub you with?
They had leaves, you know, they had those oak leaves, they brush leaves. He had no soap there, of course. There was no soap. First, he let me soak in the dirty, shitty water with the 12 other kids in there. He had about maybe 4 or 5 huge bathtubs where all the kids, and the grown-ups going in there. Then we used to go to the Schwartz and rub ourselves off clean. Then he used to dunk me in the mikveh.
That's in the
But
cold
everybody
water.
pitched into it. The cold water. Then I came home clean.
And you do that once a week, whether you needed it or not?
That's right. In the morning, the women went. In the afternoon, the men went.
Who got the clean water, the woman or the men?
That I don't know. Whether the water was clean or not, I didn't pay attention to it. They had to, there was no drainage over there. If they drained anything, it had to be drained into the sort of a ditch-like, you know, where it drained out. It had clay floors, it had no wooden floors.
So,
And that's what I remember, and, yeah.
yeah, what was the village like? You know, how many houses were there? You know, were any of your relatives living nearby? What was it like?
Well, as I said, being that my family had 12 children, about 6 of them would be one door next after another, closing on Grandpa and Grandma's house.
So it was like,
One was a shoemaker, the other one was a butcher, the third one was, we had 2 shoemakers, and a butcher, the other one was a, yeah, he bought cattle and sold cattle. You know, it was what you call a cattle buyer and seller,
a broker.
a broker like. That's the money to know.
Okay, well, what did your grandfather do?
My grandfather, well, as I tried to tell you, he worked in the garden. And I suppose he helped out his sons wherever he needed. But being very religious, he would wake up in the morning and spend an hour or 2 davening. By the time he got through saying all the Tehillim and all the putting on 2 sets of Tefillin on and davening and so forth, he'd come home, he'd have his breakfast, and go out. And I presume the rest of them were the same way. Because they were all very ultra-religious. Half the town was schnorrers. They would go out to the city or to, well, even grandfather would give this one help, this one help. Whoever, they had to exist, they had to live. So they helped each other along all they could. Those who were fortunate enough to be in some kind of profession, there a couple of them had horse and buggies they used to use as a taxi cab, you know, to drive to the city, to the other town. He would make money on that. Another one would make money by carrying they would go out and buy wheat, corn, and so forth from the market, and they would pay him to carry it on their shoulders home. He would walk home with it. Because there wasn't so many buggies to go around, you know. They had the old-fashioned buggies, so all the rest of it was wagons. They were drawn by oxen.
Here, let's take a minute break now, Ken.
Okay.
What do you remember about the relatives that live nearby? Do you remember who they were, how many children they have, your cousins and aunts, uncles that were right in the neighborhood?
Yes, Uncle Herschel lived right across, right beside us. He had 6 children.
Did any of them ever come to the United States?
No, not them. Only one girl survived, and that's Haicha, who lives in Israel now. That's, she had one girl, Rachel.
Yes, I know Rachel, I met her.
Haicha. That was one of Uncle Herschel's children. The rest of them were guests, were burned. And then across the street was Farkas. That's another daughter. Well, the boys came out here, Sam and Martin came out here. But the girls, he had 4 sisters left in Europe. They never survived. And then there was
You talked about Rosie Weiss.
Rosie Weiss, yes. No, I'm talking Rosie Weiss was different. Rosie Weiss lived a little bit, about 4 or 5 doors further into town. She came over with me at that time. No, she came over before I did. And they all came out here, except 2. Rosie, Mary, and Molly, and Cecil. And Zindel. All the children came out to this country.
So Rosie and Molly I know, and I don't know if I know the other ones.
Rosie, Molly, you know. Well, Zindel you probably don't remember. He moved over to he still lives in some Midwestern state. I don't remember. Can't recall it now. And the younger one died in New York.
And who was their parents and how were they related to you?
Oh,
Rosie's and Molly's and Zindels.
well, Rosie's and Molly's mother was a sister to my mother. The same thing with Farkas's. Farkas's mother was a sister to my mother. Rosie Rosenthal, you don't remember, do you?
Yes, I know.
You remember Rosie Rosenthal? And Al Bain, they were sister and brothers. Well, Zalik, no, Zalik was the name. Anyway, he lived further deeper into Bitchkip. He had also a shoe factory, a shoe repair shop. Well, he had 3 children, and those children and him, they just disappeared during the Hitler's time. And that's about it. Oh yes, Shamo left 2 sons over here, Joe Bone and what's the other one name? I don't think you remember either one of them. He lived in Chicago.
I don't remember.
Eddie and Joe Bones, they were 2 brothers. They were the sons of Shamo.
Okay. What do you remember that you liked to do in your grandfather's house when you lived in Nogibochko with him and your grandmother?
Well, in Bochco, I was too busy. I went to school, Hungarian school, and I had to go, it became compulsory go to school, especially those in Michigan. And being that my cousins, are you seeing me?
Yeah, I'm saying
And
you're
being
fine.
that my cousins who lived right next door to me, they had to go to school too. Well, it happened so that I was able to speak Hungarian and Romanian, because that's the first language I learned while I lived over in St. Lazar. They spoke Hungarian and Romanian. When I moved over to Buchko and Krasnev, all they spoke is Yiddish. So when I started to go to school, and I was able to speak Hungarian to the teacher, and Puzanachaga, she was an old teacher, she taught my mother and my uncles. She was the same teacher that taught my mother and uncles how to read and write in Hungarian. Naturally, when I went over there and she told who I was, so I became a favorite translator to translate to my cousins what she said in English, what she said in Hungarian.
In other words, although your family lived in Hungary, in the shtetl, they never used
They never
Hungarian.
spoke Hungarian, just Yiddish.
So, except for those that really had substantial business outside of the shtetl, they would never even learn the native language of the country.
That's right, except the ones that had to travel around, like my grandfather, he learned how to speak Hungarian, and my uncle's the one who traveled around, he had to learn how to speak Hungarian. But my little cousins and so forth, they were forced to go to school, that's how they learned to speak Hungarian, read and write Hungarian.
It's almost like what we have right now with the Mexicans living in Los Angeles, they speak Spanish at home.
Similar to it.
Now, what do you remember about the school that you went to, the Hungarian school?
Hungarian school? Well, to my regret, it was only one season, because I was very young. You know, when I started to go to school, I was 5 or 6 years old. That was during the war. And it happened so that the war started right not far from the town where we lived. So when the Russians came through, well, we all ran for our lives. My folks went to Ermiafalva, that's deeper into Hungary. That's where I met Uncle Tante Cella's mother and father. They lived in Ermiafalva. You know Tante Cella?
Yes, I know.
Uncle Nathan. And there I met her sisters and her brothers, like Alex Y. You know Alex?
Yeah. Yes,
And
I know.
the brothers and sisters, I met them over there. And we stayed over there for a month or two until the Russians were pushed back. And after a while they came back again. I ran over to St. Lazar. I was over with my other grandfolks. So we kept going back and forth during the war that I had no occasions to go to school anymore.
So you only had one year of school in
One little
Nine
semester
West.
of school, Hungary, that's all. And then during the war, we didn't stay long enough to go, except to go to Hebrew school at night, you know, and be ready to run. Be ready to run, and that kept on going all through the war. All through the war.
Do you remember what the subjects that were taught in the Hungarian school?
Well, as a rule, the ABC, and like they do over here, like they start first grade, second grade, start reading and writing a little bit, and actually talking, explaining, and how to be able to stand on your feet and answer a question.
Was the school a large building, or was it just one room, or how big of a school was it?
Well, the school was well, but I remember, I only remember one room. didn't look around to see how big the school was. But I was in one room in the first grade with the other cousins of mine. And the other children, none. Besides, there was only maybe a dozen or so kids from Kracheniv, Bichkiv, that my cousin's family came out. The rest of them were Gentiles, Christians' children.
So the Jews and the...
And their mother language was Hungarian.
So in the public school, the Jews went to the same public school along with the Hungarians.
That's right. And another thing, I was distinguished because when I came from St. Lazar, I had a haircut, no payas. And I didn't wear no tzitzis like the Orthodox do. And over there, in Krasnoдар, they all had payas, heads cut off, close haircut. The only thing is they left the payas. And they had the tzitzis hanging out, you know. Like they do over and here they are, the real Orthodox, you know. That's how they wore. That's what the style of clothes they wore. I didn't wear those clothes. Naturally, when I came home and when it came to Krasnoдар to go to Cheder, I was called the Shagets.
You looked like the Gentile kids.
Yeah, I looked like a Gentile kid. And they called me by my Hungarian name, Shani. They didn't call me Shmuel. My Hungarian name, Shani. And I was called the Shagets because I was dressed like a Shagets and haircut like a Shagets. And naturally, my grandfolks, especially grandmother, talked to grandfather, why have me with payas and so on. I had it for one time. She said, take it off. They even sent a picture of me with a little round Capulet payas. But when I went during the war, when I went back to St. Lazar, and I took a haircut, you know, and they always called me Shiny. So after that, I never had payas. Never had no tzitzis. And that's why I wasn't brought up so religious. I didn't know what, I couldn't daven very much. Until this day, I don't daven so good.
So, who was your favorite relative in with Nagi Bochko in your grandfather's house there? Who did you like to spend time with the most?
Spent time the most? My cousins. Next door. The Uncle Hash's he had 3 girls. He had a boy, Zindel, who was about almost double my age, if not more. But mostly with my cousins next door.
When you went to your cheder, that was after public school?
Yes.
You know about what time of day was that? Was that, did public school start early and go late? You remember what the hours were?
Public school would start around 8 o'clock. It was a good 15, 20 minutes walk, if not more. We'd get home around 3 or 4 o'clock. And we rested for maybe half an hour and went to cheder. Then it was broken up for supper, and after supper we went to cheder again. In the morning, we woke up early because we had to daven before we went to cheder. Of course, I was too young to know much about davening, but I used to go with the rest of the children. Then I came from cheder and said my brocha, and I had breakfast, and I went to school. And that was the daily routine. And I didn't like it so much either.
Was there any special routine for Shabbos?
For Shabbos, oh yes. Shabbos was already, well, Grandma we used to have an oven. Every house had an oven. We used to bake the bread, and challis, and we used to cook special Shabbos. It was like a feast, and we had to get everything ready. Then I had to go to the mikveh. From the mikveh we came home. We had to go to shul and daven. After we daven, we came home. We sat down, and everybody was dressed up, cleaned up, and grandfather used to make kiddush. He used to sing a song, Samiras, and it used to be 2 hours, 3 hour set, and he used to drill me on what I learned in Hebrew school, and then he would sit me on his lap and tell me stories, grandfather. And of course, being that I was the only grandchild, only one living there, and I was young, he would take me on his lap often and tell me stories. He never went to Siget, to the city, without coming home and bring me some candy, some other stuff. Always brought me a present. Always. Never came home empty-handed from the market when he went to. Always had something. And of course I was the envy of my other cousins. I had it and they didn't. So
You remember the Zemirs that you sang?
Zmiris?
Yeah.
Yes, I still remember some.
Well, which ones?
I would say, Kol Mekala Shivi Kru Eloi, Koshem Shabbos Kedas Mechal Eloi, Arbai Luretz Genoi Piko Eloi, Kilisha Dignoi, Shah Digloi. That's one of them.
What does it mean?
I don't know. It was all right. Yori Venulam Veyomahir, Anti Malku Melech Malchayu, Yori Venulam Veyomahir, Anti Malku Melech Malchayu. There was a Sir Mishaloi Yochal. Well, maybe I could use, I have a dozen of them.
Okay, I like to hear
them
them.
back. I haven't sung them for all these years. It's still in my memory, because we used to sing them every Friday.
Oh, I like to hear them. I like to hear them. These are nice things to have. I like to have this song. If you can, if you remember any more.
Sir Mishaloi Yochal Barchi Aminai Savani Vayasani Savani Vayasani Savani Vayasani Kavar Adoshem.
You must have really enjoyed your times with your grandfather.
Well, I did. Those are the songs that after 70 years, mind you, maybe 65, 70 years, that I remember those things.
Who was your favorite non-family member in this in Nugget-Butchko? Do you remember anybody from the community, Jewish, non-Jewish, anybody who was especially good to you or that you liked being around especially?
I would like to be around. The favorite or non-favorite?
Oh, favorite.
Favorite.
And also the non-favorite, is the person you dislike the most.
Well, my cousins were the favorite. Well, all my cousins. Among the elderly, let's see. I had across the street Sam and